Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure tonight to welcome Sheilabye Sobrany, the President of the Royal College of Nursing, and she is going to introduce the webinar. So Sheila, lovely to have you with us tonight, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be welcoming you to this important event. My name is Sheilabye Sobrany. I'm the President of the Royal College of Nursing. I was elected by our members to this role in 2022, and I work alongside your General Secretary, Pat Cullen, the Deputy President, Tracy Budding, and the Royal College of Nursing Council to represent you, our members. As internationally educated nursing staff, you're a tremendously important part of our health and care workforce here in the UK. As such, you make a significant contribution to the health and well-being of everybody who lives in this country. I want you to know that you are a valued member of the Royal College of Nursing, and we appreciate your commitment and dedication to nursing and the people you care for. I want you to know that our college welcomes you and is here to support you throughout your nursing careers. I know it's not easy coming from another country to practice nursing in the UK. You have many challenges to face, ranging from complex visa system to learning a new culture to understanding our use of the English language with its slang and idioms. I know that many of you have left family members, friends and loved ones behind to be here with us. As a child of migrants myself, I appreciate how hard this can be, and sadly I know all too well about the discrimination that many of you will have faced since arriving here, from your patients and perhaps from colleagues or from broader society. This is never acceptable, and it is a fundamental part of my personal mission as the Royal College of Nursing President to change this and to identify and challenge racism wherever we encounter it. Earlier this year, I attended the launch of Too Hot to Handle. The report laid bare the extent of racism, defensiveness, and apathy about this in NHS trusts. This was further underscored this week with the publication of the NHS Workforce Race Equality Standard, which highlighted systemic racism across the NHS in England. These reports serve as a timely reminder that the more must be done to not only tackle racism, but to commit to implementing properly supported anti-racist strategies. As well as championing internationally educated nursing staff with governments and employers, the RCN is also here for you as individuals. We offer a vast array of support to our nursing staff who come to work in the UK, and we can support you with immigration and financial advice, personal development in your career, as well as counselling and peer support. We also host regular events like tonight's webinar to help you and enable you to meet and network with each other, as well as access information to help assist you as you live and work here in the UK. Tonight's session is all about the personal matters you may have to deal with as a member of the nursing community who has chosen to come and work in the UK from overseas. And this evening, we're pleased to be joined by Sophia Barrett, Martin Campbell and Ruth Thompson. Sophia is a qualified solicitor and one of our senior immigration advisors. She's here to give you an introduction to the UK's immigration system and will be covering important topics such as bringing family from overseas, settlement and your rights to work. Martin will be sharing an update on the Royal College of Nursing's work lobbying the government on the key issues affecting internationally educated nursing staff working across the NHS and nursing sectors. And last but not least, Ruth will be talking to you about the benefits we offer you as RCN members. We'll finish the evening with a Q&A session where you'll have the chance to ask any questions that you might have. If you've got friends or colleagues who weren't able to join us this evening, the session is being recorded and will be available to watch on our website. So once more, thank you for being here tonight and for all the vital work that you do. We are proud to have you in our RCN membership and thank you for your continued commitment to our wonderful profession.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you. So I'm here tonight because there's been a series of these webinars, and tonight Northern Ireland, the team in RCN Northern Ireland are hosting the event. So again, a very warm welcome to any of you who have joined in the last few minutes. I'm also joined this evening by some of my colleagues who you may not see on screen, but they're supporting us very much in the background. So that's Brenda Rush, Monica McVeigh and Lisa Holden. So thank you to them as well for being here tonight. So I'm just going to hand over to our first speaker of the evening then, the first presentation, and it's Sophia Barrett. So thank you, Sophia.
Thank you. If we could move to the introductory slide, first slide. So the areas that I'm going to cover this evening will be an overview of the health and care visa, and we'll also be looking at family members, bringing a partner and children to the UK as a registered nurse, bringing a partner and children to the UK as a care worker, changing employer, establishing the right to work, settlement, and recourse to public funds. Next slide, please. So, excuse me. So the health and care visa, this is a subcategory of the wider skilled worker visa regime, and it's specific for health and care workers. If your job title isn't one of the listed prescribed jobs under the health and care visa, you will not be eligible to apply to work in the UK under this particular route. Next category, next slide, please. So in terms of eligibility criteria, only employers who are licensed and approved by the Home Office are eligible to issue a certificate of sponsorship that is required once you are applying for a health and care visa. It's a mandatory document that you will need in order to apply for a health and care visa. If you do not have a certificate of sponsorship from a licensed approved employer, you will not be able to apply for a health and care visa. There's also a minimum salary, as you can see on the slide, and it depends, the minimum salary does depend on the type of work that you are being sponsored for. So these figures, the actual amounts changed on the 14th of March, and you can see that the minimum salary is now increased if you're a band 5 nurse to £13.88 per hour or £27,055, and this is gross. This is a gross figure, so it's a pre-tax figure. For senior care workers, it's £23,200 or £11.90 per hour, and for care home workers and home carers, it's £23,200 or £11.90 per hour. It's worth just mentioning here that for care workers, you will not be able to become sponsored unless your employer is regulated by the Quality Care Commission. Next slide, please. So bringing a partner to the UK. So this is, I'm going to separate this for registered nurses and for care workers because the rules are now different. So if you're a registered nurse, you are eligible to bring partners and any children under the age of 18 to join you in the UK. So that has not changed. If you're a registered nurse, you're still eligible to apply for your partner or unmarried partner. Unmarried partners, you have to show that you've been living together for at least 2 years before applying to or getting your partner to apply to join you in the UK. And that's if you're an unmarried partner. If you are married, you do not have to show that 2 years sort of criteria. Next slide, please. So for children, any child coming to the UK to live with a registered nurse, they have to live with you for the duration of their period of time on that visa, unless they're going into full-time education at boarding school or college or university. They can't be married in a civil partnership or have any children of their own. So, for example, any adult children If they then decide to get married, they're no longer treated as dependent. They're deemed as living an independent life. They would have to apply in a different immigration category if they wanted to remain in the UK. So you have to show that they are continue to be financially supported by the main applicant. Next slide, please. There is a financial requirement. So any nurse wanting to bring their family member to the UK has to meet this financial requirement. So you can see for themselves, they have to show that they have £1,270 available to support themselves. And in addition to that, £285 for a partner and £315 for one child and £200 for any additional child. But there are exceptions to this financial requirements. Next slide, please. So you won't, you won't need to show the financial requirements if the main applicant has already resided in the UK for at least 12 months. If they've resided in the UK for less than 12 months and they are applying for their partner or children or both to join them in the UK, you have to show that your employer is willing to cover your family's costs for the first month in the UK. So you'll see this is usually confirmed on the certificate of sponsorship. If the certificate of sponsorship doesn't confirm that the employer will cover those costs, you can ask the employer to write a letter on headed business headed paper, and that letter can be used to support an application for a family member to come to the UK. Next slide, please. So the issue with care workers and senior care workers is slightly different compared to registered nurses. So some of you may be aware or will have heard in the news back in December, the announcement that the government made with regards to the rights of care workers to bring family members to the UK. So that includes spouses and children under the age of 18. It's important to note that if any skilled worker health and care visa holder who had been already in the UK prior to the law change on the 11th of March, they're not subject to this new rule change. So if before the 11th of March, a care worker had been residing in the UK, they hadn't yet applied for their family members to join them, that's fine. That's not an issue. You can still apply for your family members to join you. That 11th of March date is important for people who are outside of the UK and haven't yet applied to come to the UK, or they are living in the UK already, but on a different visa route. So if a person on a different visa category wanted to switch into the health and care visa route and they have family members with them, they needed to switch into the health and care visa route before the rule change on the 11th of March. So those are for people who are already in the UK, but not on health and care visas. So that's really important to note, because obviously we did have a lot of calls, lots of concerns, calls from members who were already here in the UK but hadn't yet applied for their family members to join them here. Next slide, please. So changing employer. So in order to change employer, you're not tied to an employer when you're working here with a skilled worker health and care visa. You are allowed to change employer. The important issue is that you follow the correct procedure when changing employer. So you need to submit a new application online to update your visa status. So if you're changing employer, you've obtained a certificate of sponsorship from that new employer. And with that new certificate of sponsorship, you submit your application. You can continue to work in your current job, as you can see from the information on the slide, or work out your notice period. You cannot start working for a new employer until you have received a successful decision from the Home Office. So you've submitted your application, you're waiting to hear as to whether or not that application has been approved. The application is then approved, you can continue working for your current employer whilst you work your notice period. So you get the approval, you hand in your notice, you can continue to work out your notice period. Next slide, please. So establishing right to work. Every new employer will request that you have the right to work in the UK. There is a specific website. If you literally just type proving right to work in the UK, usually it's the first link that will come up is the proving the right to work page. You will need your biometric permit or your passport, the passport that you used when you applied to enter the UK with your current visa. So this is an example of what a share code looks like. You would basically provide that share code to any potential employer. So long as you can provide a share code, as long as the website generates a share code, you have the right to work in the UK. There are other ways of proving the right to work. There's the employer verification service as well, but that's only for employers to use. But that is another method that you can prove your right to work. Again, on that proving your right to work in the UK, it has a comprehensive list of ways that you can demonstrate your right to work in the UK. Next slide, please. So indefinitely to remain, so the finishing line caption. So this is ultimately what recipients of the health and care visa are aiming to obtain, and that's once you've resided in the UK for 5 years, and that 5 years is continuous, so there's been no breaks in your leave to remain, you are eligible to apply for indefinite leave to remain. Once you have indefinite leave to remain, you no longer require a certificate of sponsorship. You can work for any employer for as many hours a week you require. There's no issue with regards to salary. So even if your salary is below the amounts that I mentioned in the previous slides, doesn't matter. It's essentially not that much of a difference in terms of having British citizenship. Once you have held indefinite leave to remain for 12 months, you are then eligible to apply for British citizenship. Next slide, please. So public funds. Those of you who are already on the health and care visa will note on your biometric permit where it says quite clearly no recourse to public funds. It's probably easier to tell you what is not classed as public funds. The Department for Work and Pensions does provide a detailed list as to what's classed as public funds and what isn't classed as public funds. Next slide, please. So childcare is an issue with regards to eligibility and childcare. The 30 hours free childcare is treated as a public fund. Next slide, please. So this is a list of what is not, or what are not classed as public funds. So recently I have been advising a member who's currently has been dismissed from their place of work and is still looking for another sponsor. these are basically essentially what is available to anyone that has the no recourse to public funds restriction. These are all considered as contribution-based public funds. So these are based on national insurance that has already been paid. So since working in the UK. So this is something that I would strongly advise. I'm not a welfare rights advisor. We do have a welfare rights team as part of MSS, and I would strongly advise any member who's concerned about what they are eligible to apply for and how to apply for those benefits to seek advice first. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Martin Campbell, International Policy Advisor, for his presentation. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks Sophia. Good evening, it's great to be here. I'm Martin and I'm the International Policy Advisor here at the RCN. I'm going to quickly talk about some of the work our team is doing to challenge what we believe are often hostile and damaging immigration policies and encourage ethical recruitment and employment practices for internationally educated health and care staff. The international policy team here at the RCN works closely with our research and public affairs teams to produce research and evidence about the experiences of internationally educated nursing staff coming to the UK, and we work to make sure that this evidence finds its way into the hands of decision makers in government. Some of the key focus areas for us: we closely monitor recruitment trends, looking at data from the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and we apply pressure to the government to abide by international obligations and promote ethical international recruitment in line with guidance from the World Health Organization. We're also aware of the issues that many internationally educated nursing staff face when trying to navigate the UK immigration system. We've just heard Sophia talk us through some of the issues and complexities of that system, and we lobby the government to reduce the costs and the barriers to entering and remaining in the UK. We also work closely with nursing associations from around the world and share information about international recruitment with them to help build global nursing solidarity and tackle unethical practices. Nursing is a global profession and we need to work together to address the challenges that we face. Next slide, please. Moving on to some of the key lobbying activity that we've undertaken recently. Towards the end of last year, we wrote to the Home Secretary to oppose the increases in visa fees affecting the immigration health surcharge, which was raised by 66%, family visas and the health and care visa, which also saw the fees raised by 15%. We also wrote to them to protest the increase in fees for processing applications for indefinite leave to remain, which was increased by 20%. In all of these cases, we've stressed the impact these policies have on the attractiveness of the UK as a place to come and work, and also on the impact it will have on the retention of the internationally educated nursing workforce already here in the UK. We've also consistently opposed the no recourse to public funds visa condition that Sophia has just talked about. We've recently concluded a survey of RCN members looking at the impact that NRPF has had on them, and we'll be looking to use this evidence that we gain from this to call on the next government to remove this unnecessary and harmful visa condition. Last year, we also submitted evidence to the government's Migration Advisory Committee on a major rework of Home Office policy for occupations like nursing that are in shortage in the UK. And we also responded to a consultation held by the Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, looking at the use of the health and care visa in the social care sector. We used those responses to raise our concerns about the lack of enforcement of labour standards in the sector and to encourage a review of immigration rules that give more powers to employers. In all of our consultation responses, we always highlight the importance of international recruitment to maintaining the UK workforce and stress the need to improve the way the UK immigration system treats internationally educated nursing staff and hopefully encourage them to stay here permanently. Alongside other Royal Colleges and health advocacy groups, we also lobby the UK government on changes to the UK asylum system. We have publicly opposed the Nationality and Borders Act, the Illegal Migration Act, and the Safety of Rwanda Bill that's currently still in Parliament. In our outputs, we've highlighted the health consequences for those subject to detention and removal by the Home Office, and we've also looked at the professional impact on nurses working with those seeking asylum in the UK. That includes their role in conducting age assessments and making safeguarding referrals for victims of human trafficking. We've also called on the government and employers across the health and social care sector to abide by ethical recruitment and employment practices. A great example of how we've done that recently would include our work with Kwasi Kwarteng, the former Chancellor, to provide evidence for a Westminster Hall debate on unethical employment practices affecting internationally educated staff in social care. As part of our briefing for the debate, we included anonymised case studies of nurses supported by the RCN when they had been asked to repay thousands of pounds, in many cases over £10,000, in recruitment costs when trying to move jobs. Our hope is that by drawing attention to these issues, we can encourage parliamentarians to take a tougher stance. That's everything from me. On the next slide, we've included a list of references for the presentation this evening. So if you do need any further information about something we've mentioned here tonight, you'll be able to rewatch this online and follow the links to the information you need. And with that, I'll hand over to Ruth.
Thank you very much indeed, Sophia and Martin. Now, we do have questions coming in on our Q&A, so please, if you have questions, please type them up there and we'll get to them just in a couple of minutes. But I just want to spend literally just 1 or 2 minutes just for some of you, you may not be RCN members, and maybe for some of you are RCN members, this will be just a wee reminder of some of the things we offer as part of your membership. So obviously we are both a trade union and a professional body, and as a professional body we offer a vast array of learning opportunities through RCN Learn. There are several courses and lots of resources there, and we also have Europe's largest nursing library. We also have a number of professional forums and networks. So could I please encourage you, if you haven't visited RCN Learn site or look to see what forums or networks are available, please look, because there's an array of things available, and it's a great way to get connected into the college and to meet other members as well. We offer workplace support, but as the only nursing specific trade union, that is all very nursing specific. So it'll be specialists who are dealing specifically with nursing, or nurses themselves who would be offering you that support and guidance. So that would be quite different from other trade unions within the UK. And we also have the biggest legal team of any UK trade union, again offering a vast amount of support and information should you require any legal advice or help as well. Lots of other things, other ways in which you can get both emotional and practical support. So you've heard about some of our immigration advice tonight. Lots more things available for you as a member. Also welfare guidance in relation to financial help and other things. Career coaching. So if you want any help in relation to interviews or planning your career or thinking about your next steps, that's available as well. There are counselling services available as for members, and other support available too for any members with disabilities or any other concerns. We also have a guide. There's a link there. You can see it on the screen. A guide to common English expressions. If you came to work in Northern Ireland, you might need an additional book because we have lots of our own expressions here as well. I'm sure if any of you work in Northern Ireland, you're trying to get your head around those. Even within different areas of the UK, there'll all be there'll be local sayings as well, which are sometimes they're interesting, difficult to understand sometimes. So, and then there's also careers advice as well for anyone in relation to career planning. So that's just a very small overview of what we do have available. So please do have a look at our website, and I really would encourage you to join the 500,000 members that we already have, and to come on board with us. I think you'd find that really, really useful. So thank you everyone for listening so far. So hopefully you'll find it interesting. I see that there's quite a lot of questions coming up in the question box. So I think we'll go from the start, and I will ask the questions, and hopefully Sophia and Martin would be able to answer some of these for us. So Someone has asked, how early do you need to submit the certificate of sponsorship for renewal of the visa?
I mean, it's a conversation that should be had first with your sponsor. So don't leave it to the sort of last minute. Effectively, you should have a discussion with your sponsor, I would say, around 6 months before your visa expires. Not necessarily to apply, but to discuss with your current sponsor. You need to let them know that your visa's going to expire in 5 or 6 months' time. That ensures that it gives them enough time to see if they actually have the actual certificates of sponsorship available. They may have run out. Employers are given a specific allocation each year of certificates of sponsorship. When that allocation finishes, they have to apply, the employer has to apply to the Home Office for more certificates. And that we've had members who've been told, you know, they've been waiting months for those certificates to come through. And often the member has left it until maybe a couple of months or 3 months before their visa is due to expire. So have a conversation. First of all, have a conversation with your sponsor first. But you basically, if you're looking to extend your visa, you're looking at around anything, a couple of months, 2 months, to apply for an extension. If you get your new certificate of sponsorship within 2 months of your current visa expiring, you can submit your application. It's just a matter of making sure that you submit your application before your current visa expires. But don't wait until a month before your visa or 2 months before your visa expire before you start talking to your current employer about giving you a new COS so that you can apply to extend your visa, because they may have run out, and it can take a considerable amount of time for them to get a new allocation.
Okay, thank you. There are a couple of questions here that are similar. So do my children need to stay up to 5 years too before applying for the indefinite leave to remain? And there's another one that's similar. So for getting the ILR for spouse and children, do they need to complete 5 years, or will they get ILR when the main applicant completes 5 years in the UK?
No, it's so this one of those awful answers. It depends. So for a spouse that's easier. All spouses have to spend 5 years as a dependent of a health and care visa recipient. So this, even if the main applicant has since obtained indefinite leave to remain, if that spouse didn't come to the UK for 2 or 3 years after the main applicant, so they can't apply at the same time as the main applicants, they have to spend 5 years in that dependent route. So they just have to apply to extend their visa as a health and care visa dependent, spouse or partner dependent. So they have to spend 5 years. If a main applicant entered the UK with their spouse and child or children, the children have to apply at the same time the dependent spouse applies. So again, they cannot apply with the main applicant if the dependent spouse is not yet eligible to apply for ILR themselves. So those children either apply at the same time as the dependent spouse, the other parents, or they apply once that other parent, the dependent, has ILR themselves. So there's no situation where the dependent child applies at the same time as the main applicant, unless the child, it's just the child and the main applicant. There's no other parent, there's no dependent partner. So for example, a registered nurse may have entered the UK at the same time as their child, or the child entered the UK a few months or a couple of years after, but the other parent didn't join. So it's basically a lone, the main applicant is a lone parent. In that situation where it's a lone parent with their child in the UK, the child can apply at the same time as their main parents, even if that child has not yet resided in the UK for 5 years. The sticking point is if there is a dependent spouse, so there's another parent, that child is sort of joined with that other parent, so they're eligible to apply when that eligible the dependent partner or parent is applying, not when the main applicant. I hope that makes sense. It's one of those ifs and buts. It depends on the situation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, you've explained that very well. It's a complicated thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've lots of questions, Sophia, because you're going to be really working hard tonight.
Sure.
Do the NHS offer sponsorship certificates for healthcare assistance?
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not sure how easy it is at the moment, if there's a lot of recruitment within the UK at the moment, but they can do. I mean, most trusts are licensed by the Home Office. It's just worth, you just have to check on NHS employers, NHS jobs to see what's available. But they can, if they have vacancies, they can, they are licensed by the Home Office, and they often do have vacancies available. It's just a matter of seeing, going on their website. The NHS employers website also has a list of what's called ethical employers. I'd also recommend going on to that website. If you literally just type NHS employers, ethical recruiters, it should take you to that page. I always recommend that because there are agencies and employers that have shown to adopt good working practices. So if it's an agency, they won't charge you a fee. You must never ever pay a fee to any recruitment agency saying that they can source employment for you. That's you shouldn't do that at all. So go to the NHS jobs, ethical recruiters.
Okay, that's great. We are having quite a high number of questions, so it may be that we'll answer some of them just online as well. If there's any that we can just answer, we'll do that as well. But yeah, we're working you very hard, Sophia. So is there any support at all for those who can't access public funds for help with childcare, as this is really challenging?
Yeah, not that I know of. Again, that might be something that actually there might be something the welfare may be able to provide you with guidance on. I'm not aware of any extra. That there may be some charitable funding, and that's a matter of basically Googling and just seeing what individual nurseries offer. There may be individual nurseries that may have other funding streams. You're looking really now at charitable sources. There's no sort of statutory, no government that I know of help for childcare, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Are
there any occasions where one's visa type in relation to their hours of work is changed due to a child's medical issues? Is that possible?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry.
So the question is, are there occasions where one's visa type in relation to hours of work is changed due to a child's medical issues?
So is it a matter of having to provide
maybe
extra
you can't
care?
work? Yes, so you maybe can't work the hours that you had.
I mean, the issue really is around ensuring that your salary doesn't fall below. So you can cut hours. I mean, there used to be a point at which you couldn't work for less than 30 hours per week, but you just have to really pay attention to your salary and that you're still earning the correct salary for your role. So you can't cut your hours down to the extent to which your salary is just, you're just not earning enough. Yeah, that's a challenge. the problem is the health and care visa, it's a very restricted visa category. If you're not earning the correct salary, that can have an influence on your ability to apply for indefinite leave to remain after 5 years. If there's an issue once you come to 5 years, you haven't been earning the correct salary, you'll find yourself having to extend. You're constantly extending your visa because you're just not eligible to apply for ILR. But there's no exception in the immigration rules because you have, unfortunately, because you've got childcare or caring needs.
Okay, that's great. So next question is, how long does it take to get a visa decision? I'm sure that's
well, for
variable.
health and care, yeah, I mean, the health and care visa, I mean, there was an issue during lockdown and just coming out of lockdown where people were waiting months. The current, I think the last time I checked, the current service time for the health and care visa is around anything from sort of 3 to 8 weeks. That they do, the Home Office does produce service standards. So if you again Google UK VI service standards, it depends on the visa. Some visas will take 6 months, some take 12 months. But specifically for the health and care visa, the health and care visa was designed, the government, when they announced the health and care visas back in 2020, it should only take around 3 to 5 weeks. If you're using the standard procedure, if you want a quicker decision, you have to pay for it. So you're looking at £800 if you want to get a decision within 48 hours, or about £500 if you want a decision within 5 days. So if you want a quicker decision, you have to pay extra for that.
Okay. And then under the health and care visa, can a nurse be an associate tutor within a university? Are you restricted to what type of? Doesn't have to be a clinical role, does it? Or
no, I mean, there are members who the majority of their work is clinical, but there's elements of teaching. You can. I mean, you just have to see what codes you're given in your certificate of sponsorship, just to see. I mean, you can. I mean, there are members who do dual roles, but the majority of the work that they do is clinical. But there is an element of teaching, so it's not impossible. You can do it.
Okay, that's great. I feel like we're not even giving you a breath tonight, Sophia.
Sorry,
You're doing an amazing job. You really are. You're fabulous. So here's another one. So this person's daughter will be 18 in September, but not yet in the UK, although they've come twice, but they obviously maybe haven't stayed in the UK. Can she still use the same visa after 18?
So they've never, that child has never been to the UK.
Yeah, maybe she's been twice, but maybe just as a visitor, maybe.
Oh, as a
maybe
visitor,
not permanently, maybe. Can she still use the same visa after 18? I'm not really sure if we're that clear on that one.
Yeah, it's not clear.
Yeah, maybe if you want to just add a wee bit of detail in for that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a member, maybe arrange an appointment. And yeah, we can get a bit more detail from you.
Yeah, so if you do that, then that's Aditan, Esther Bamadale. If you want to make an appointment, then we can go through that in more detail whenever we have the specifics then. So next one is, do my children need to go through ILR to get citizenship after I have got citizenship? I recently learned about British registration for child dependents.
Yeah, I mean, if the child was born here, then once you've got ILR, you can apply for registration for that child. They won't need to apply for ILR. There's a discretion, the Home Office can exercise a discretion. Depends on, again, it's one of these depends questions, and I'd advise you to maybe contact us to arrange an appointment. Depends on how old the child is, how long they have resided in the UK. There's lots of depends, because you're asking the the naturalisation team to exercise some discretion. So if it's a situation where the child wasn't born in the UK, they're your dependents, you've since obtained ILR. Yeah, it's one of those. It depends. I'd want more information because you have to build a case basically to get the Home Office to exercise discretion in that child's case.
Okay, that's grand. So we have another person on. Christina is a registered nurse and has her ILR. Can her mum join her in the UK as a dependent?
Right, and this is a live issue that also international policy have been campaigning quite hard on. So this is the issue around adult dependence. Again, it's a really difficult, it's a really high threshold because you have to show that the care that you are providing your elderly parents is not available in the country of origin. It's a really high threshold. We had an appeal which we were successful on the specifics of that case. But it's, yeah, there is a adult dependent visa, but the rules are really stringent. And there's a lot of information that you would have to provide. I mean, if you already are working here as a nurse or as a care assistant, that application would be quite strong because you can show that you can provide a level of care because this is your parents. Obviously, you love your parent, you'll be providing really good care, but you're also a healthcare professional. So potentially you can put in a really strong application, but you also have to show that such care is not available in the country of origin. So it's again, it's something just to get some advice on before you submit an application.
Yeah. Okay. If a nurse decided to do agency jobs, do they need a new COS? So assume they're maybe working and they have a COS, but then they want to do some agency work. Would they need a new?
No, not if you're working as a nurse. Not if you're working as if you're a nurse and you're working as a care assistant doing agency work, you won't need a new COS. So that's COS free appointments, so long as you're doing less than 20 hours per week. That's really important.
Okay.
So if you're doing less than 20 hours, it's fine.
Okay, and I suppose maybe if you're wanting to leave a job and go to an agency, then that would be different. You would need one, would you? I'm just hoping we've got that question right.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, this is, I'm assuming this is for sort of additional work.
Yeah. Okay, so someone had their son's visa got refused because they didn't prove sole responsibility. What proof would you need to supply in that?
Oh,
case?
yeah, just we have
a minefield.
Yeah, it is a minefield. We recently won a admin review, but it took a year. Admin reviews are taking forever to decide. Again, it depends on the situation. So if the other parent is not traveling with the child to live with you in the UK as a dependent, and it could be for a number of reasons. It could be a relationship breakdown, the other parent is deceased. It depends. So you have to show why is that other parent not traveling to the UK with the child to be your dependent? What possible reason? So if there has been a divorce, you need to provide evidence of a decree absolute. If the other parent's deceased and that child has been looked after by another family member, you need to provide a death certificate to show that that other parent has died. If the other parent has never really played any part in that, this is where it becomes difficult. If you are able to obtain an affidavit, a letter from the other parent, if they're willing to do that, to say, I have no objection to this child living with their other parents, and they confirm that they've never had any responsibilities towards this child, you can provide that as well. So it really depends on what the scenario is, why the other parent isn't available, because what the Home Office is looking, or what the immigration rules are saying with sole responsibility, is that the parent who's here in the UK has sole responsibility for that child, whether it's for their emotional, educational, financial well-being, that responsibility is not shared with the other parent in any shape or form. So if that parent is absent for whatever reason, you just have to provide evidence. And as I said, it could be a death certificate, it could be a decree absolute, or a letter themselves. I always recommend maybe an affidavit, signed affidavit, to say they relinquish all rights. They've never had anything to do with this child since the child's birth. It's always, the child has always been the responsibility of the parent that's based in the UK, and they are basically confirming that, and they are giving permission for the child to leave that country to join the parent here. So that's the sort of evidence you're looking at, and you should put that in at the time you're putting in the application.
Okay.
If it's been refused, just put in a new application, but get that evidence rather than putting in an admin review.
Perfect. Next question then, can you clarify about the expiration of, when it expires, I can't say that word right, biometric residence permits, BRPs? I had to look that one up.
Yeah.
So this is someone who plans to go home in November, but they're due in December 24. So can you still use them, or do you need to renew them months before it expires?
Right. So when you were granted your initial leave to remain, the Home Office or the entry clearance team would have emailed you to say your application has been approved, your visa, and it will give an end date. So the email that you received telling you that your visa has been granted will give you an end date, and that end date could be at some point in 2025 or 2026. However, your biometric permit will stay the 31st of December 2024. And that's because biometric permits are being phased out. So if you had been informed that your visa expires in 2025 or 2026, but your BRP ends on the 31st of December 2024, what the government have said, we're coming to the end of March, the government have said that from the 1st of January 2025, you will have to go onto an online portal. So similar to what people with EU settled status have had to do. You have to go onto a portal that will prove your immigration status. The government have said that individual BRP holders will be notified of what this portal is, how to access it. They haven't produced anything as yet, which is a concern. But if you're planning to travel, if you have evidence to show when your visa ends, and you should have received that via an email, that's your evidence as to when your visa ends. But it's just the BRP that is ending on the 31st of December. If you've got evidence that your visa will end after that time, hang on to that. But we should know, hopefully, maybe in the summer. The government haven't announced anything, and it's a bit worrying because we're now in a sort of, I suppose we're in an election year, so there's other priorities. But the government have made a statement on Government UK Home Office. There is a statement online, an official statement to say that the government will inform BRP holders as to how they can prove their status. So when that information is available, you would just simply log on to that. I think it would be similar to how to get a share code, as I described earlier in the presentation. You'll just log on to that portal, your photograph will be there, and it will have evidence to say, we confirm, the visa will end on whatever date. Print that off, laminate it, look after it, take that with you when you travel. But hopefully in the next soon, there'll be details as to how to access that information.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to do a wee bit of talking just for a minute or so, Sophia, so you can catch your breath. So we still have quite a number of questions here. We will promise to, if we don't get your question tonight and we're not going to get to them all, we will answer them, and they'll be available after the webinar. We also have a link that I think it has maybe already been put up, or it will be going up, a wee evaluation link. I would really value if you could fill that in for us. Just re-evaluation on the event tonight as well. So please just watch out for that. And all of the past events are also available to watch as well. This recording will be available afterwards, but some of the previous ones are available on our website as well. So some of the questions I think we've maybe not answered them very exactly but the questions relate to, I think the answers would be pretty much the same around BRP and around parents and stuff. So there are a few that I'm just going to skip past there. I hope that's okay, and I hope whoever asked the question feels that it has been answered. Going back to the healthcare assistants getting sponsorship certificates in the NHS, Sophia, are there any specific opportunities for them to train as nurses beyond, and specific for people coming under a sponsorship certificate? Or would that be standard way of training?
Yeah, the problem with the health and care visa, it's not really designed for professional development.
Okay.
I think to really in a nutshell, it's basically for you to work in the UK in a sponsored role, and it's one of these things that I think once you get indefinite leave to remain, that's when you have the freedom to essentially to expand your horizons basically, and I always encourage members to get some career coaching from the coaching team as well. But certainly once you get ILR, you're treated as a home student, and you will be able to do a degree course and access student finance as a home student, which is far cheaper than being an international student. And at that point you can really sort of expand and look. I mean, I know there are some apprenticeship schemes available with the NHS, but again, there is sort of immigration and residence criteria around a lot of those apprenticeship schemes. Last time I looked at them, so it's quite restrictive. So really, you're looking at when you get ILR, you've got the world's your oyster, basically.
Okay. I think we'll probably, just so that we can get as many of these done as possible, Sophia, if we maybe just give, I know it's probably hard because all of these questions are quite complicated, but if we just give like 1 or 2 sentences just to try and so that as many people as possible can get a wee answer, if you don't mind. So here's quite a specific one. This is a lady with younger children, Nicole, and having a challenge with childcare. She has a 21-year-old daughter who is too old to come over as a dependent. Is there any way to get her over as a sitter or a nanny or as a childminder?
There's nothing in the immigration rules for
Okay.
That's something that the immigration rules will say, well, you can access that assistance here. It's not something that you need to get somebody from abroad, even if it is your older child. You can access that type of support here already. So unless that 21-year-old is able to apply in her own right for a visa, whether it's a skilled worker visa, student, that you're really looking at, you're coming here as a visitor, and again, as a visitor, you're not allowed to work. You're here to visit. You're here as a tourist.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
After 5 years, are you obligated to apply for residency?
No.
Obliged.
So,
Obliged to apply.
which is good because of the fees at the moment. There's since the increase in fees in October, lots of people have found that they've got to the 5-year point and they simply just haven't got the funds to apply for ILR at that point. You just have to apply to extend your visa, whether it's with your current employer or with a new sponsor. But you can extend. What's good about the health and care visa compared to the tier 2 visas, that you couldn't spend more than 6 years on the tier 2 visa. You had to apply for indefinite leave to remain. With the health and care visa, you can extend. You can keep extending for as long as you need to. So
Okay.
it's not mandatory.
Okay. I'm just very conscious that we are out of time, believe it or not. So I think we probably need to draw to a close. So apologies, because we do see that there are so many more questions here, and we would have loved to have been able to answer them all. But as I say, we will be able to answer those, and or maybe signpost you to somewhere to help, or you can contact RCN as well if you have any specific questions that you would like us to answer. And in the chat there, you can see the number for RCN Direct and for different places as well. So I'm not sure if anybody else has anything to add at this point, but I would just like to really thank Sophia and Martin for tonight, and for Sheila for joining us as well. Thank you. I hope just as I'm looking down through the questions, I think some of them may have been answered through some of the answers that Sophia has already been given, but we hope you find it useful, and we look forward to seeing you on another webinar soon. Thank you so much, and good night.